Greetings and salutations, happy listeners. We want to welcome you back to our second installation of SMT. Today we are jumping into the history and mechanics of connecting with the spirit world through the old school Ouija board right on through to EVP, otherwise known as electronic voice phenomena.
Yes, and we would also, even though this is only the second episode, we'd like you to meet our mom. I think it's time.
Mom.
I think it's time you met
mom.
Our mom. we love our mom.
We love our mom. Love her.
So before you panic and skip to another podcast, allow me to explain. The mom, of course, is our meme of the month. We love memes. We do. We think there's a lot to be learned from memes.
From the memes.
Yes. So we're going to introduce this as a regular segment on our podcast. And so this month's meme is it's a seance with the title "Virtual Meetings Are Basically Modern Seances." And
You see people holding hands. Well, they're kind of holding hands.
Yeah.
Hey, Elizabeth, are you here? Make a sound if you can hear us. Is there anyone else with you? We can't see you. Can you hear us? Kind of going along with the theme of our Zooms. Because everybody Zooms.
Yeah, this is a frequent, a very common occurrence in the Zoom meetings.
Would you like to Zoom with us?
Elizabeth, where are you?
Can't. And most of the time, you can't see them.
Yeah, right.
Everybody has to coincide together.
Yeah. So this was happening in the old days, the olden days.
Old school Zooming.
Yeah, old school Zooming. Exactly. So we love memes. We're gonna have more memes like this. But this is a good way to get into our show. And
so welcome, Mom.
Welcome, Mom. And we're going to get into one of the early tools, I guess, for communicating with the other side, and that is the Ouija board.
The Ouija board, which Robert Murch, whom we love, had quoted, communicating with the dead was common. It wasn't seen as bizarre or weird. It's hard to imagine that now we look at that and think, why are you opening the gates of hell? I am in the school of thought that Ouija boards are not evil things. That's my position.
While they are not, they may not be. This is where I'm a bit leery of Ouija boards, but maybe not because I think they're inherently evil. I just think there's maybe a bit of caution that you would use when attempting to communicate with the spirit world.
Yes, because
you can't just go. A bit of trepidation is called for it.
Well, yes. I mean, you don't want to just open up to just any old thing that could be lurking around. But again, I kind of look at, and a lot of people do. A lot of people look at the Ouija board as a divination tool. Well, what are you divining? They talk about tarot. They talk about even dowsing rods. But people use tarot all the time. They don't look at it as an evil thing. And I think, was it, which president's wife was it that used the Ouija board? Because even way back when.
It was Lincoln. No, wait. No, Ouija. Okay, let me think. I want to say Lincoln.
Lincoln's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Lincoln's wife who was using, they had just lost a son, mm-hmm. and she was desperate to communicate with her son, and then it wasn't even thought of as, there was not a stigma when the Civil War happened. Lots of loss during that time. And from what Murch was saying, these things kind of come in waves. When there is large world events where there's a lot of loss, people tend to look to speak to their loved ones.
Exactly.
So, I mean, where does this concept come from that it is such an evil thing?
Yeah. Yeah, that comes into actually let me just let's listen to this little clip here.
See, that just sounds evil. Sounds like we're conjuring the devil.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the association with like demonic possession came from somewhere, right? That had to come from somewhere. And this actually is a good place to put in a trivia question for our listeners.
Oh, yay.
Because it did Ouija board and their films. We can get into those later. There have been many films on this theme. But for our listeners, for this trivia question, what 1970 film completely changed people's perceptions of the Ouija board? And so, if you're listening now, we're gonna give away the answer. Of course, because we're going to talk about it. But pause it. See if you can think. Don't Google it. See if you can think about what the answer is.
Where the Ouija board actually got its bad reputation. Sacrilege.
Okay. And, of course, that 1973 film is The Exorcist.
Dun, 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 dun. Yes. And it is one of my favorite films. However, now I look at it like, how could you do this, Exorcist? How could you betray the Ouija?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it is interesting, like that, the idea that this could be a channel to introduce demonic possession. And I don't know, do you want to talk about those other films? We have, even more, this was 1973, but, even today, 2014, there's the Ouija movies that we just watched.
Ouija and Ouija Origin of Evil.
Exactly. So, yeah,
and again,
Ouija
it's right in the title, Origin of Evil, which I think is,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, but I think is extremely unfair. Again, even in the first movie, they were saying, never play this alone. Never, don't play in a graveyard. What was the third? Do you remember the third?
Don't do it alone. Don't play in a graveyard. And always say goodbye.
Oh, yes. Always say goodbye. Opening and closing the circle. Yeah. Well, there's just like with a, I don't know, let's just say a circular saw, right? That's looked at as a dangerous tool, but a lot of people use them if you take safety precautions. So is that key? Being able to use a divining tool with safety precautions, not using it alone. I think there is safety in numbers, I would say, but just like any tool, as long as you kind of keep certain things in mind, don't open the lines of communication to just anything.
Right, right. And this is what the film kind of, you see this where they're just, I don't know where the little the chant they say at the before they open the Ouija board and they begin the session or whatever. They say something, our hearts are true, spirits near we call to you, or something like that. I don't know where the origin of that is or where that comes from, but it's like, that's kind of like, you're rolling the dice, right? You're just like any old entity could just come through.
You're not specific when you want to talk to somebody. But then there's a school of thought, as they were kind of examining the history of Ouija boards in an article that we read, which we will include in the show notes, that there were some actual scientific, what am I thinking? What's the word? I can't think of the word.
The research into the EV
experimenting with the Ouija. There was a group of scientists that were asking when they were developing the Ouija board as a game, does this actually work?
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, let's take these groups of people and we'll give them a Ouija board and we'll give them a subject that they know nothing about, that they think they know nothing about. And if they just ask the people, the group of people that didn't have a Ouija board, can you answer these questions about this subject that you don't know anything about? And then they gave the group a Ouija board, the same exact questions, who again didn't think they knew anything about it. With the Ouija board, they found that the people who used it, they had answers. So the scientists began to wonder, well, is that channeling your higher consciousness? And having a physical tool to be able to do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just...
So there's... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's like, how do you even begin to put that into a scientific method? It's like, you're dealing with so much, and it's daunting. But so this article, the strange and mysterious history of the Ouija board. This is the Smithsonian article. It deals with all this, so it's a really good article, and you definitely check this out.
But
there have been science. Yeah, exactly. There have been scientific attempts, right?
Yes, and the thing is, there is that school of thought that, okay, the Ouija board is just, all it is tapping into your higher consciousness. And the other school of thought is that you're talking to entities. I don't think it has to be either or. I think it can be both. I think you can both, maybe tap into something that a certain knowledge, a certain state of consciousness, that you already have within yourself. And, is it possible to contact the dead? The dearly departed? Mm-hmm. I'm sure it is. Can you bring in something that is inherently evil? If you open yourself up to that, I guess you could, if you just open up the board to anything. But just like with any divining tool, I think it really does come from the intent of the person attempting the communication.
Right. Yeah, we have talked about this before. I don't think it happens like you see in the movies. It's like all of a sudden some demon comes in, and no, it's definitely a two-way street, and you sort of have to allow it to some degree. Like, yeah. And
this is why I'm desperately hoping that Robert Murch, if we can get a hold of him, will have a discussion with us.
he would definitely have a lot to add to this conversation for sure. We'd love to have him on the show. But okay, so let's actually get into some of the early pioneers into EVP research, and EVP is electronic voice phenomena.
The text spoken by the voices and the sound volume are exactly the same as in the original recording. To help the ear adapt itself to the strange rhythm, rapidity, and softness of the voice entity's speech, each utterance is repeated several times. The voices here selected are grouped according to the persons addressed and their respective answers, followed by a translation and explanation. They are examples chosen to give the reader a breakthrough, an acoustic illustration of the material presented in the book. The listener is asked to read any text spoken in languages he does not know with particular attention, so that he may be able to grasp each separate word phonetically. Please note the commentary that goes with each voice text, as the meaning of some utterances can only be understood in context with the situation that gave rise to them.
Yeah, so this was the introduction to the LP version of the work of Konstantin Raulev, is my attempt at pronouncing his last name. But So Konstantin Raulive, he was a Latvian psychologist who taught at the University of Uppsala. He was a student of Carl Jung. He did a lot of collaboration and experiments, recordings with this other character, Frederick Jurgensen. He seemed like a pretty interesting character in his own right. But they did a lot of work, and they published that work in 1971 in Breakthrough, an amazing experiment in electronic communications with the dead. And if we can find a link to that, we'll probably put that in the show notes as well. But yeah, and then of course the record. So yeah, they would play these recordings and with notes and trying to describe what was going on, and they used various different recording methods. So some of them were more effective than others, and but some of these recordings are at least very clear. It's like, okay, yeah, wow, this is very distinct. What the voice that's coming through, and they were in different languages as well, so that adds another dimension to it. But
well. Yeah, what was surprising to me, I've always been aware of EVP. You see this on Ghost Adventures on Travel Channel, A&E, Paranormal State, Ghost Hunters, all these things you see. But what I was not aware of before reading that article was that this dated back. We're talking LPs. I had no idea that they actually recorded this stuff on records. And then you go back to the earliest kind of trying to capture phenomena, paranormal phenomena on spirit photography, the old school photographs, and then it moved to recording on an LP. I would have never thought that, as early as that, they would have been trying to capture communication with the dead on anything. So I thought that was pretty, like watching the technology go from trying to record on a record to now look at what we have. Digital recorders, SLS cameras, thermo cameras.
Yeah.
Our desperate attempt to what? Prove life after death?
Yeah.
Speak to our loved ones, bridge that gap between us and the other side.
Right. Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because in the early days of photography, that was also there was some overlap between the spiritualist movement, right? So, and what people were accepting as evidence of the afterlife, evidence of apparitions, and you had photographs with what could be and what people took as proof turns out to be something inherent with photography in itself, that's the fact that you could make double exposures. So yes, there were those, but a lot of people after that were sort of like dismissed. They say because there may have been a photograph with a double exposure, then everything else they're just tossed out the rest. Like, okay, well, obviously everything is a fraud, which,
right.
So it can be both things can exist, right? It's like more than two things can exist at the same time and be true, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where the technology has grown. I believe has grown in its capacity to be more. I guess you could alter any photo in any given medium, but it would be kind of hard to do so. For example, my husband and I, we captured an image on a wildlife photography camera that we put inside our house when we were showing our house, because we were like, we want to see the people coming in and out of our house. And we actually caught an image of a full-on person that there's no way that somebody could have gotten into our house.
Yeah, you showed me that photo. It's definitely haunting. Yeah.
But then you look at EVP, and I gotta say, going back in the technology, would you say it was easier to falsify an LP versus a digital thing where you now have all kinds of software where you can drop in sounds on top of sounds? I think it'd be harder. I almost look at EVP, the earliest forms of it, as more hardcore proof than maybe the digital forms now.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of people say, oh, that's, they can look at an image and say, oh, that's photoshopped. It's much harder to do that with. I mean, not that you can't do it, but there's a lot more to recreating a recording, a video or audio recording. So if someone did want to make a fake, it takes a lot to do that. It's not just like, I'll just snap this together.
But I still like the idea of trying to do that with an LP for some reason. I don't know why, but I look at the electronic, voice phenomena today, and I would say that when the kinds of equipment that my husband and I have used, again, we're just amateurs. We're just playing with this stuff. You have your Spirit boxes where it will scroll through radio channels, and supposedly the entity will try and pick up on those channels to pick out words, verbiage, that it can communicate actual sentences with you. And then you have your digital recorders. I would say that if all of a sudden you just heard outright a bunch of voices and things like that, I don't buy into that as much as, say, the recordings where people are talking and they're asking questions, but they're not audibly hearing anything, just, as you and I are sitting here talking. When you have to go through and recapture the sound loop and enhance and take out your own voice, and then you can hear it. It kind of reminds me of that movie, The Sixth Sense, where, the guy doesn't recognize that there's anything being recorded when the kid is by himself in this room. And when he turns up the volume, then he can hear like a bunch of voices actually talking in Spanish.
Okay. And
see, that kind of thing, I tend to believe those are more authentic than just your average, all of a sudden we're hearing music. And I mean, I guess that can happen, but I guess I'm more skeptical of EVP sometimes than I actually thought I was. So interesting, but.
Yeah, well, yeah, the technology is always changing. There's always going to be, the ability to, the technical ability to create images, recordings, and things like that. But then it doesn't necessarily deny the existence of spirits, of apparitions, and things like that can happen. Absolutely. And it's interesting, actually. Why don't we get into? We could also mention here the cloud, and the reports of like demon texts and things like that. Yes.
There was that priest who he wrote a book and everything. And I cannot remember his name. But a priest that has come out and said people are receiving text messages through their phones from demons. There are, and then you have to wonder about the cloud. Have we created yet another space, for something to communicate with us, something to reach out for us? Because what is it? Why would it be more? How could a demon go through your phone? Why would they want to? And one person who actually said, well, because it's energy. Because all it is energy. But then I was like, well, what exactly is the cloud? And if you look that up, because everybody looks at it as this ominous, undefinable space that we have created and allowed something to come through because all it is energy. It's not exactly true. What the cloud is actually just servers.
Right.
It's just space on servers.
Exactly.
Which I didn't actually realize what the cloud was myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, your email could be considered the cloud, right? I mean, it's just anything that's any like computation that's carried out on a remote server on the internet,
Yeah.
So,
but
the idea that some entity could manifest through that, sure. I mean, why not?
And so there again, I will bring it back to the Ouija board. Any tool, I guess you could say, could be a threat, could be dangerous. Because if you're going to go back to the Ouija board and call that evil, then you got to look at your cell phone. These wonderful, beautiful little devices we can't seem to part from.
Yeah, they're glued to our faces.
Yes. Yeah. And our hands and our whole being. We can't live without our phones. Well, then that must be evil too. If what this guy is saying, if this priest is saying, oh, the devil is now coming through our phones. Well, then why not our television? Our televisions are smart TVs. We got smart
exactly.
TVs. We got.
If there is a devil, then why wouldn't the devil be able to jump through our phones? and scare, the boogeyman. The boogeyman is out there.
Yes, I mean it could be anywhere. I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay, let's go back to even electricity. That is energy. How many times have you seen in movies? Something's around us, something is present, and the lights will go out.
Yeah.
Or they'll flicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
A good example of that, Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist from, I think it's 1981.
Okay.
That she gets, Carol Ann gets, sucked into the television, and the investigators are at their house, and the electrical impulses of the lights start, and the mom, Diane, the mom is, oh, you got to be faster than that. The flashes come in twos, come in pairs.
Yeah. We
watch a lot of movies. We do. We watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Nigel and I.
Yeah. Yeah. But we did actually, well, I kind of want to jump in here with this. We did have our own EVP happening.
Yes, we did.
Actually, let's play it. Let's play it. And then we'll come back and so you can judge for yourself what you think this might be. This was during our last recording our last episode.
So exciting.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It doesn't the image doesn't, it's not like oh my gosh, what is that?
Yes,
I think that
maybe it's the eyes. I think the hellfire and fury is affecting it.
I hear the wings flapping. Do you hear the wings flapping?
I might. Somebody needs to. Do we need to call?
we need to call some.
If it is a moth, I think that Orkin can do something. Where's their number?
Oh yeah.
Please.
This is just bizarre. That is seriously bizarre.
Nigel, have you been smoking the ganja?
No, you don't hear that? That brap, 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 brap.
No, I don't. Seriously.
Oh my God.
Are you lucid? Are you with me?
This is, what do I do here? I can stop the recording. Okay, so you can decide for yourself what you think that if you believe it was the actual Mothman coming to visit or not. That's for you to decide. We're gonna actually go to a bit of a commercial break.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. SMT Podcast is a member of the Travelogue Media Network. Founded in 2016, the Travelog Media Network aims to provide an alternate view of the Caribbean and Latin America through interviews and personal narratives. You can support our work with a purchase from our online shop. And as a special thank you to our listeners, we're offering a 10% discount on SMT t-shirts and mugs through November 3rd. Just use the promo code SPOOKY10 at checkout. Look for the link in the show notes. Okay, we'd like to remind you that we do have a call-in number for listeners. This is our podcast call-in number. And I'm actually going to play a listener call-in. I'm going to call him a listener. He did listen. I'm going to play this message from Ken Zone. He had some interesting things to say that you could apply to our conversation today. So let's just take a listen to that.
Ken Zone thoughts for the day. Be the transceiver of divine light you are meant to be. Heart-brain coherence is the key to unlock our natural spiritual evolutionary impulse. Balance, nature, and technology.
Balance, nature, and technology.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And this particular caller, Ken, he's, I think, a very wise soul. Comment on where our natural state of being begins and its relationship to the technology that we are using, how we are using it, what can it provide for us. It's so much more than just communication devices, not just communicating with each other, the people around the world, possibly with spirit.
Yeah, right. Well, it's interesting too what that we're saying. Be the transceiver, like the and this idea during the evolution of EVP research. There are mediums, right? Mm-hmm. And like the introduction of the Ouija board sort of like kind of cut out the middleman, so to speak, and during that time, and it was like a sort of removed step. It was taken, like there wasn't as much a perceived need to be a medium, right? It was like something else did it, right?
Yes.
So,
but in a sense, if we're also looking at it from a perspective that we are using our higher consciousness, like you're saying, it almost allows room for anyone to be that medium, not just special people, that seem to be gifted.
Right. But there is a lot that goes into, I don't know if you would call it training or, whatever you want to call it, to be able to be a medium, to receive messages from the other side. True. So I don't think I left I don't think I mentioned the number. So for listeners who do want to call in, and we would love to hear from you. Also, you can call into the podcast. This is a voicemail only number. No one's going to answer, but the area code is 303-731-6104. 303-731-6104. We'd be delighted to hear from you.
We'd also be delighted to hear from you through email if that's more convenient at smtpodcasters@gmail.com.
Yes. Please send us your mail. Get in touch. Let's see. So, we didn't do the trivia. There's another trivia question, and this one involves a little clip. This goes back to our discussion on the on Konstantin Raudive's work and his LP Breakthrough. So there's this little piece of trivia. I'm going to play this little clip, and I'll have a question for you. So let's just listen real quick.
You are sleeping. You do not want to believe.
I'll play it one more time.
You are sleeping. You do not want to believe.
Okay, so that is from the LP Breakthrough, and
by one of our favorite.
Yeah, we want to know
bands.
from listeners. See if you can guess this trivia question. What Smiths album uses this as a sample? What Smiths album? And extra bonus points if you can name the song. So album and or song. All right, were you able to guess it? That, of course, was sampled on Rubber Ring from the album Louder Than Bombs. So congratulations to those of you who got it correct. And so that's the trivia. What else do we need to get to?
Back to our Mothman clip.
The Mothman clip, yeah. What did you make of that?
Well, the interesting thing is, and which is why I really believe we did catch something, in our last show, Nigel and I were talking about the Mothman, and he was having this experience that on my end, I couldn't hear. I didn't hear anything. I thought he, I just didn't know what was happening until he was actually saying there's something happening on this end. But again, we are in two separate studios working on different equipment.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that later there was another, and I believe it was when we were talking about the Mothman again, and I heard it on my end, but you didn't hear it on your end. And just to be fair, you thought that it was just like a software glitch or something, but you and I are not running on the same software.
That's true. That's true. So it remains a mystery. It could be a message. Could be a message. I'm open to that possibility. Even if I do have some other explanations for it, other possible explanations. So
it was something.
It was something.
We could not explain it. And there you go. I think that when you maybe even talking about this stuff might open people up to having the experiences. Maybe that's part of it, having the openness to have the experience in the first place. So that's why I still am in the school of the Ouija board is not evil. If you go in with the intent that, you are not allowing anything evil, how can it break that circle? How can you break that circle if you put your energy, you ask your guides if you believe in that kind of thing to protect you. I don't think that they can break that circle. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Maybe. I've heard that. I've listened to some other paranormal podcasts, and that's one of the common threads is that, if you express, to whatever you're experiencing, if you express like you're not welcome here, or go away, basically go away. Yes. You're not welcome here.
Yes.
Usually, most of the time, it works.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I invite you, because Nigel, that I'm actually creating a Ouija board, because now I'm just fascinated with the idea, and I don't want a Parker Brothers standard Ouija board.
No,
I want the real deal. My husband cut a slab of wood. I am burning it. So Nigel will be in the house soon.
Yeah.
He's actually visiting.
I'll be visiting the Colorado studio shortly.
And Nigel, will you partake?
Well, here's the thing. Like you said you wanted to do a graveyard. There's like
I'm not going to the graveyard.
You don't want to do it in the graveyard?
Because that's one of the rules, remember?
Right. Well, yeah, but I would, so I don't know what your position on that was, because, you don't seem
I
very...
want to go to the graveyard to ghost hunt with some of the EVP equipment we have.
Okay. So you're not scared of graveyards per se, but you might not want to take it that next step with the Ouija board.
I don't think I want the Ouija board in the graveyard. I don't know. How daring are you? How daring are you feeling?
I have some reservations about it, but I'm anxious to at least see. Yeah, this will be interesting to see it, because I don't know many people who have made their own Ouija board. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my husband, he's good. When I'm done burning it, the writing and everything on there, he's going to shellac it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will not experience a shellacking ourselves by using
a spiritual shellacking.
Yeah.
It's the case maybe.
I just, I'm not, it will be used with caution. So yes to the ghost hunting in the graveyard.
Okay.
No to the Ouija board in the graveyard.
Okay.
We'll go to a church.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll go to a church.
Okay. We can do that.
That might be sacrilegious. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that. I'm just asking. Let's just asking for trouble.
Yeah. Tough call there. Tough call. All right. What do you think? Listeners, call in. Give us your thoughts about that.
Where shall we use the Ouija board?
Where is it appropriate? Where's the use?
In a meadow.
Yeah, in a meadow. A sunny meadow. Do you want to talk about our bonus episode and our guest? We're going to be...
Yes. We do. We have we just have this amazing stroke of luck to speak with Rick Keeber, an EVP investigator who owns his own company. He is the author of several books. I think he's working on a film project right now, and you guys got to stay tuned, because we're going to be coming up with that bonus episode, that second bonus episode. We are so lucky. And thank you ahead of time, Rick.
Yeah.
For joining us.
Yes. You definitely want to check this episode out. This is going to be he's definitely going to have some interesting
cool stuff,
bits to add to this conversation. Okay, so is this an episode? Are we out of here?
I think it might be. Yeah. Cue the music.
Okay. Now it's an outro. Look for show notes to all links and articles mentioned in this episode. For all our new followers and listeners, we want to thank you for your support. We hope to welcome you back next month as we take a look at the secret lives of plants. Are they conscious beings? Do they feel? Do they thrive and live with intent? Stay tuned, happy humans. And, don't follow us on social media. Oh, no, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do that. Are we out? Yeah, we're out.